Welcome to The Ticket, where we explore the future of customer service, support, and customer experience. My name is Ruth O'Brien, and I'm the head of automated and proactive support here at Intercom. Today, we're joined by Rob Clark, head of technical operations at RB2B, to talk about scaling customer operations using AI. Rob has transformed how RB2B supports their customers by implementing AI-powered first customer service, dramatically reducing the workload for their team and increasing customer satisfaction. We'll dive into how he built a support system that works seamlessly, what he's learned along the way, and what the future holds. Hi, Rob. Welcome to The Ticket. How are you doing today?
Hey, Ruth. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm very good. Excited to chat with you again. I know that we've chatted previously, but yeah, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself. You've had a really interesting journey from engineering to running customer operations at RB2B. How did that happen?
Yeah, I did have a bit of a detour in my journey getting to being in operations and everything. I started my career really as a graphic designer. That's what I did after university. I went to design school and became a graphic designer and then quickly moved into web development. I remember 5 or 6 years ago telling my wife, like, I don't want to spend the rest of my career writing code. And I'd always kind of started looking at roles that I could leverage my technical background while not necessarily just spending all day writing, like typing out code. And one thing led to another, and I left the agency that I was at and went, ironically, to take a developer role somewhere else and took a couple weeks off between them. And during that time, a good friend of mine who he has a mixed reality remote support company, so they holograms and all that stuff, which is really cool, reached out and he goes, I'd come up and talk to me. And I was like, okay, went up to the office, met with him, and I left with a job offer because he was looking for somebody to handle success, implementation training, and more. Like the way he described it, he's like, look, I need somebody that can bridge the gap between our customers, sales, and engineering, somebody that can speak developer, but also human. And you talk to the sales team, talk to our customers. And I was there for about 2.5 years doing that until the fall of 2023. And I joined retention.com. It was a similar role. So they were looking for somebody with technical skills that could kind of bridge the gap between a bunch of areas, customers, the implementation team, the sales team, the engineering team, somebody that could effectively talk to all of them and translate. I joined the team, and about a month later, in early December, I got a meeting invite between my boss at the time, who was our chief of staff then, but now our COO, Kelly Spinner, and our CEO, Adam. And admittedly, I was terrified. I was like, oh no, did I screw something up? And I'm so oblivious to what it is. Like, am I 1 foot out the door? And it was the opposite. They were launching a brand new product that was still in early beta and wanted to know if I'd be the first and only employee working on it, aside from like the C-suite who was developing it. And that was really exciting. So essentially, I was working directly with our CTO as he developed our B2B, handling onboarding and training for our beta users, creating documentation, helping with product design and development, and providing support. I was all of that for our beta users. It started as unnamed B2B product, later got its name, became our B2B, and we officially launched to the public just under a year ago, at the end of March 2024. And we're, again, just coming up on our 1 year anniversary. So that's kind of how I went from development to this operations role and kind of being in the mix. And it's definitely something that evolved over time and kind of really found that niche that I really liked and could leverage that technical background while being hands-on with customers and helping develop the product.
It's so interesting. And it really reminds me of a lot of what we speak about at Intercom now, that so often in previous lives, people would think about support, like customer facing roles, being sort of like lower hard skill set, right? And the type of work that you're doing with customers in your organization is this kind of future of support and customer facing roles where AI is taking care of like some of that, like I suppose, easier stuff that support people used to do. And support roles and customer facing roles are actually far more complex with a greater skill set required.
Yeah, and that's essentially what we're using Fin for, is, for lack of a better term, it's handling the low-hanging fruit, which is freeing our support team up to handle the more complex issues. Support's a very, very small part of my role, and really I'm handling the extra complex stuff, the stuff that, like, would be right before going to the engineering team. That's kind of where I live, and having Fin knock out the easy stuff, the stuff that you would answer 30, 40 times a day is just invaluable.
Yeah, that previously you would have needed a huge team for, or certainly a much bigger team than you have now.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, like, that's what it was at the very, very beginning too, with RB2B, is that's what was on my plate.
Yeah. So let's talk about that kind of earlier stage a little bit more. You were handling onboarding and support quite manually initially, right? What was that like? And what were the first steps that you took to unmanual, to like automate that stuff?
It was incredibly manually. So like I said, RB2B was really like, I came in the same day that it went from like a proof of concept to let's get some beta users on, and there was nothing. There was no infrastructure. It was a HTML snippet that people installed, and we automated a daily export of a CSV. No interface, no nothing, like completely clean slate. And it's not every day that you, on one hand, it's great. It's awesome to have a clean slate. On the other hand, it's terrifying to have absolutely nothing to start from. But yeah, there was nothing, no processes, no dashboard, no documentation. And the closest thing that we had to an interface wasn't customer facing. It was just a single page that I had, where I put in some basic customer info to create a customer, and it would generate a script. And then everything lived in my inbox. All of it was completely in my inbox. I kept track of everything on a shared Google sheet, like the stage of where a customer was with installing it, if it went live, if there was questions, all of it was just tracked there, because we were in our infancy with everything. And like, our documentation was just a couple email templates and a PDF that got sent with the first email that had like some install guidelines for popular platforms like, WordPress, or just whether you installed with a WordPress plugin directly in the header, or here's how you just put the HTML snippet in the code on your site. But really quickly, managing everything through my like work email inbox was becoming unmanageable and not organized whatsoever. Initially, we kind of hesitated to go further with how we were going to organize that until we really had that like moment as a team where we went, okay, we have something here. Let's turn it into a like, you know, turn Pinocchio into a real boy and create a thing. And that's when we decided to go with the Intercom instance for RB2B and get everything over there. Now, hilariously, it's actually Retention's second Intercom instance, third kind of, for our founding team. So the founding team at Retention actually has been using Intercom for well over a decade. They did it with their previous company when they started retention.com 6 years ago. That was one of their first installs, was setting up Intercom. So when I joined, we had Retention has their direct consumer products, and that's, again, there's an Intercom instance there. And one of the very first things I did when I joined the company was to port their entire knowledge base over from a WordPress blog where it had been previously managed into the Knowledge Hub. There's no direct WordPress to Intercom transfer, because why would there be? So, using the API and a lot of black magic, did and exported the database, ran it through the API, imported everything into Intercom and structured it there. And really, it was a crash course for me on Intercom and how the platform worked and its capabilities and its feature set. And really, the main reason why we did that was to put everything under one roof for the support team there. They'd have direct access to the articles with a couple keystrokes as they're answering tickets, instead of having to like go to the WordPress site and copy a URL or whatever. That, and it made it a lot easier for our users to have everything under one roof as well. So when it came time for us to do the same for RB2B and really mature and start moving our onboarding and support experience somewhere, and Intercom was the logical choice, especially since I had just spent so much time in the other instance and got real familiar with it. So we set that up, moved the support inbox there, started adding rudimentary documentation and FAQs to the Knowledge Hub, which is hard to do when, again, you don't have anything for somebody to look at. There was no dashboard, there was no nothing. So it was just a couple like answering how this worked, what it did, etc. But that quickly evolved into creating workflows for like common support questions. So as people open up Messenger, they could go, "Oh, I need help with installation or this or that." And at the time, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I started building it as a singular workflow, and that quickly became unsustainable, and scrapped that in favor of like reusable workflows where I can create a billing workflow that I can reference in 10 different spots, and then it goes there. So I don't have to maintain 10 versions of it. I can have the singular one. And it was around that time that our product designer, Iberi Ikeledo, started working on and completing the interface for RB2B. He created this like awesome design system for retention in RB2B, built our dashboard or designed our dashboard, and then it was going into development. And that's when I could actually start restructuring the knowledge base based on what was to come for our users, because soon there's going to be a place that they could log in and use it. So the documentation started to reflect that, and it evolved with the product. I mean, all of this was happening over the span of a couple months. Really, we had planned to launch our B2B at the end of April 2024. So I had started getting all the documentation ready. The support inbox was pretty quiet, usually over the weekends in general. I didn't super check on it at that point. We're still in beta. And I came in one Monday morning and my support inbox was just jam-packed. And turns out that the decision was made late Friday night by our CEO that he was just going to put the link to the dashboard live and people could start signing up. Problem was, all the documentation related to signing up and how to use the dashboard wasn't published yet. So that was the first thing I did that Monday. Published all that and answered all the questions. So yeah, that was our first foray into like going live with Intercom, and especially with going live with the product and having the public sign up on their own and use it.
So it sounds like once you had the documentation ready to go, it was a quick way that humans could answer questions by either sending the documentation, or you could point customers to the documentation before they opened a conversation with you, right? But what made you decide to take it one step further and implement Finn, our AI agent?
So yeah, there was a number of reasons why we decided to go down the AI route when it came to support at RB2B. First and foremost, we've kept the team at RB2B like ultra lean and agile. So there's only 6 of us working on RB2B, and 3 of them are employees. The other 3 are company founders and C-suite. So with so few of us and so many of us wearing a number of hats, myself included, I needed to ensure that like I wasn't completely overwhelmed by support requests and I was able to do all the other aspects of my job. And leaning on an AI agent to help lighten that support load was something that we actually planned to do from the very start. And seeing Finn's capabilities made it an easy choice. And having, I've said it a few times, everything all under one roof, the Knowledge Hub, the support ticketing, and then the AI agent in one place, super valuable. The other thing is that we designed our B2B to scale through like product-led growth, like a product-led growth strategy. We've tried to make the entire experience for our users as seamless as possible, from sign up to installing to choosing a plan, purchasing. All of that's been designed in a way that users only have to reach out to our support or sales team if they need to. Of course they can, and we're happy to help, but we've kept our B2B as frictionless as possible for users. And we have like 100 signups a day, so it had to be that way. Otherwise, I would just be swamped. But the nature of the AI agent itself is really what drove the decision. Like having a support resource that can handle dozens, hundreds, thousands of requests at the same time, 24/7, quickly, and most importantly, like consistently is invaluable. So like we have users around the world, so being able to offer them support during their working hours without needing to hire round the clock support shifts and human agents made a ton of sense to us. I like working. I don't want to do it every evening or on the weekends. And having Finn there to lighten that load is awesome. Coming in every morning and seeing that, there's only a couple tickets from overnight in the inbox and it handled 7 or 8 during that same time. Awesome.
I love that. And I love that you decided to do that before the storm. I think often what happens with support teams or companies who are getting going with supporting customers, even if they don't have a support team, is like they just hire a bunch of people to try and keep up with the demand and like think about the automation side of things, like as they're, drowning and trying to like spend more and more on support teams. So it's really interesting that like from the very get-go, your company had decided that that was something that you were going to do.
Yeah, and like I said, we were in this unique position where we were building this completely from scratch. So we had that opportunity to do it all at once. On the other side of business, the D2C team, that had been established for years and that knowledge base was all there. But having that knowledge base moved over to Intercom actually gave them the resources to make that next logical jump and start using Fin in a support process that they'd already had for 5-6 years. So they were the complete opposite. They were somebody that was the team was established and they started transitioning into using Fin to lighten their load. So like I said, we were I was fortunate to do everything all at once. And I know that it's definitely not the norm, and that the majority of places are have established support processes in place and are trying to figure out how to integrate this into what they already have.
Yeah, but I think for anyone like you and your company, hopefully if they hear this, this will be good inspiration for them to like get on the AI agent train early and not wait until there's like a huge storm to try and deal with and then like implement it like, when it's already a little bit too late for what's already happened.
Yeah, and I say this every time when people ask, when the best time is to start using an AI agent, and there's this old adage that I use every time, and is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Like not 5 years from now. Like it would have been great had you started a while ago, but today is the best time.
Especially now that we have this technology today. I think, 5 years ago we didn't have the technology like as good as it is today. But now for anyone listening, today is the day, or at the very least this week, get going if you haven't already. So you have touched on, I think maybe some of this already, but what would you say were the biggest wins if you haven't already spoken about them? And like what's the biggest impact that you've seen? Essentially, I'm looking for something that's like your favorite moment and win of the journey so far.
Yeah. So we have this whole thing at RB2B where we work very openly and in public on LinkedIn. We share our wins, our losses, our successes, failures, lessons learned, all of it. The goal obviously is to develop a bit of a community around what we're doing, but ultimately we just hope that someone somewhere finds value in what we're sharing and that it helps them along the way. So I've always been very open about what we're doing with Fin and AI and adding it, like what worked, what didn't. If I crashed and burned and saw our resolution rate plummet, why did I do that? Or like what caused it? Hoping that the next person goes, oh, don't do that. But I'm seeing the most impact from Fin in the time that it saves and gives me back to do the rest of my job. So in January, we had Fin, it resolved over 61% of the queries that it handled. And it ultimately saved us about 132 hours of work that I would have had to do if I handled those tickets directly. And we talked about the type of tickets that Fin's handling, and it's really the repetitive, like the tier one level of stuff, the same questions, the majority of them are same questions every time. And with, I think there was 168 working hours in January, and Fin saved me 132. Awesome. That's it saved almost an entire human worth of time in January. And that time was spent elsewhere, improving the product, testing, writing documentation, creating playbooks for new features, and ironically, improving the AI itself. And the more time the AI gives me back, the more time I can put back into it. And there's this whole exponential growth thing happening with Fin, because the more time I get to put towards it, the more I see the resolution rate go up over time. But My favorite moments for Finn, one's like a long-term one where I keep like meticulous track of the impact on our operations. So I've like weekly, monthly, and quarterly stats logged for its involvement, resolution rate, the routed to team rate, like the tickets that it started handling and then needed to go to a human. And like I've got calculations on each one showing how much time it's saving our team estimates. And but being able to chart that out and actually like visually see the graphical like this on resolution rate and time saved, like that's awesome. Like such a cool moment. But the other one's like this singular moment that really has it was that aha moment for me. And that's when I knew that like Finn was like the real deal and it was going to change how we handled our support. Now, it was a couple months after we started using Finn, we experienced an outage over a weekend at RB2B. And typically in the B2B world, our ticket volume's low on a weekend because they're working Monday to Friday. So there's not a lot that comes in over the weekend. Not a lot of people noticed the outage, which is fine. But there were tickets there when I woke up Saturday morning. I checked it, bunch of tickets in my inbox going, what's going on? So I answered, explained what was happening, and apologized for the inconvenience. And that was the extent of it. A few tickets answered that morning. And then I actually had to head out of town. My oldest had some away games for hockey, and we had to go travel for the day, and we didn't get back until late that night. And when I got back, I checked the inbox. I was like, okay, well, if there's an outage, there's going to be more. And I found it empty. And that was weird. So immediately I click over and like look at closed. And it turns out that Finn had fielded customer inquiries about the outage and used my previous answers as guidance without any articles or anything else being written. And like I was thrilled and shocked and surprised. And I reached out to the Intercom team and they're like, oh, yeah, there's at the time the feature was in like private beta and they had added it to our account, just hadn't gotten around to telling me yet. And it was added earlier that week. So like the feature that I didn't know was there that I was going to be brought up to speed on the next week on testing actually knocked it right out of the park. And the fact that it took my previous answers and went, oh, something's up, I'm going to answer, and it handled it so well. That was that like aha moment for me. I was like, okay, this is going to be the game changer. It can think on its feet. It's been awesome. Yeah, that was the big moment for me.
That's really cool. And it's like those moments of like AI helping AI and, the human less and less having to do this manual type of work. It's, yeah, it's mind blowing what's like, if we think about a year ago, 2 years ago, could we imagine that we would be in this place now? Probably not. And then when I try to think about like what is it going to be able to do in the next 2 years or so? Yeah, the sky is the limit. Yet, some people still don't trust AI for customer support specifically. How do your customers feel about interacting with it? We've spoken a bit about the benefits for you and your organization and your team, but what about your customers?
It's definitely changed over time. So, like I said, we've been this with Finn for about a year, give or take. And initially, not that there was a negative sentiment to it. Or like overall, it's always been positive. But at the beginning, about a year ago, there was more people that as soon as they got the chatbot, it came in, introduced itself, and said, "Hey, I'm Finn, and I'm an AI agent." Immediately, they went, "Human, talk to a human." And I get it. I'm the chatbots of old were hot garbage and they were just automated and like, no, I can't think of a worse situation. I was the same thing going, no, connect me, but like, I want to talk to a person. So I get it. They were expecting the same. As people have become more familiar with AI in general, I see less and less of that. But our users specifically in the dashboard and stuff are used to having that AI first aspect to it. They know they've come to expect it. Like in our early days, we experimented with ways to introduce Fin to our users. We tried explicitly telling them that it was an AI agent, and we saw again right at the beginning we saw people going talk to a human. And then, okay, let's try leaving out the fact that it's an AI. Don't pretend it's a human, but let's just not explicitly say I'm an AI. We saw it drop down a little bit. We're like, okay, so it's a bit of a fear about the AI and a distrust, but definitely, especially with how much AI has been in the news over the past year, and a year ago, it was still new and not scary, but it was new. Nobody knew what to expect of it, and it's just become the norm now, and people seem a lot more accepting of it. Very rarely do I have a ticket in my inbox where the AI went, "Hey, I'm Finn. What can I help with?" And then the person went, "Human." And I'd never see those anymore. Like if any, like, there's not very much hesitation at all. There are in certain parts of the world, that's just the culture, but for the, like, 99% of it, I rarely see anything now where people are going, at least in our inbox, where people are going, "Oh, I don't trust the AI." I mean, sometimes they ask for an answer, the AI gives them the answer. They might not necessarily like the answer. It's not that they thought it was wrong, they just don't like it. Then they ask to speak to a human, then they talk to the human that wrote the answer in the first place that the AI gave them, and then he gives them the same answer, and then they go, "Oh, okay, thanks." I'm like, "Okay." But other than that, like, it's changed so much over the past year, and it's just so accepted now, and especially the fact that Finn is answering confidently and well, it's great.
It's so funny that you say that because just before we came to record this podcast, I was having a meeting with my team about the conversations that were getting through to humans that Finn should have answered. And when we dug into it, quite a large portion of them Finn did answer correctly, but the customer still wanted to speak to a human and their human repeated the same thing. It's an interesting time where we're trying to gain the trust of folks, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have the same experience, and it goes even that extra level deep on our end where, again, you at Intercom, you've got a large support team because you're an absolutely massive company, and the chances that the person answering the ticket is also the person that wrote the article is slim. In our case, the person answering the ticket is actually the guy that wrote the article that the AI referenced. So the AI is just saying the exact thing that I taught it. And it's always funny to me when that happens and they go, "Oh, no, I didn't like that answer. I'm going to ask to talk to somebody." And sometimes I'll even quite literally copy paste the previous answer and be like, "Nope, this was right." And they go, "Okay, thanks." I'm like, okay.
You know, I shameless plug, I wrote a piece for our company newsletter, which is also called The Ticket, if anybody wants to subscribe. And it was about how do we gain the trust of these customers who like don't believe the answer that they were given, or they're still stuck with the broken trust from those old chatbots, the really rubbish ones with all the buttons that like caught you in an endless loop before. So it is the responsibility of folks who are implementing this technology to make sure that it is really good so that customers continuously have a good interaction over and over again. And hopefully then that trust will build. But that's another discussion that we can get into more deeply in the future, I'm sure. So, just in terms of maintaining the kind of results that you're seeing, how do you keep things up to date? You know, the content and knowledge that you're feeding to your AI agent, that needs to be correct for the answer to be correct. What are you doing to keep all of that on the move as things change for your company?
You can't take a set it and forget it approach and go, "Oh, I wrote it. It's perfect." More often than not, if the AI is not doing well, it's because of the human behind the scenes. I learned that lesson myself. No, there was times that was cursing the AI because, like, how did you possibly answer that? And then I go look at, because it shows you the source of where it got the info, and then I'm looking at it going, "Well, I phrased this in such a way that it could be confused with this completely unrelated article. Oh, that's my fault." So, like, I learned a lot about how to write more clearly for the AI and for our users at the same time, because oftentimes you're using the exact same information when they're building their knowledge. But maintaining, like, a current and accurate knowledge hub is key. It's the primary source for Finn, it's primary source for our users, making sure everything's up to date and clear. That's definitely, like, it's paramount. But also looking at all the tickets that I read all the tickets. So anytime Finn has an interaction with somebody, I look at the answer it generated, and if it's mostly accurate, if it's not like 100% on, I'll go figure out why it was a little off. Was it something a weird phrasing on my end? Where did the confusion come from? You know, if it just completely failed on the answer, then there's definitely something there. I'm like, okay, well, is it because it doesn't have the info, or is the info it has completely wrong? Like something needs to get fixed. So monitoring all that is definitely key. It's very much not a turn it on and walk away. It's keep on like keep on top of it. Kind of treat it like your car. You need to do regular maintenance on your car to make sure your car keeps running. Same idea. Change the oil, put gas in it, change the wiper blades, keep Finn up to date. But the biggest thing, the most game-changing thing for me recently with Finn is actually the new guidance feature. I've been saying for so long with Finn that like it's great that it has all these articles that it can reference, and I've been trying to phrase the articles in such a way that like it can kind of give guidance based on what's written. But the fact that now I can go in and be like, look, it basically like an AI prompt and go, in this situation, here's how you handle, this is what you need to do, instructions on specific situations, ask for more context, offer guidance depending on the scenario. It's taking Finn to the next level. Like in February, we've got Finn up to like a 65% resolution rate. In December, it was 60%. Our routed to team rate has dropped by 10% now that we can give better guidance on how to handle specific things. And it can be something as simple as like one of the things that I've got in guidance is if the user is already talking to you, whether via email or chat, you being Finn, don't offer support at RB2B.com as an option because that's in our documentation. Because if a user reads it, they need to know to email us. Well, don't the AI now knows, ignore that. Don't tell them to go do that because they're already doing that. Leave that out altogether. That in itself has just done away with feedback loops that users were experiencing. They'd go through and then the answer was contact support. Then they'd email support and get Finn, who would tell them the same thing. I'm like, okay. And then by the time it comes across my desk, they're already frustrated because now they've been told that loop a couple times and I haven't had that since adding that little bit of guidance. And just that in itself, awesome. So there's always refinement.
Yeah, it's super cool. Like we have a similar situation where we have like different pricing plans with different functionality available on different pricing plans. And we would have it all beautifully laid out in our help center. But when a customer would ask Finn a question about it, they would get a big, like huge load of information, and have to like parse through it to figure out like for their pricing plan. But now we can say, with guidance, if it's this type of customer, make sure you only use this piece of information from our content. And it just makes the whole process so much more smooth. And then again, it builds that trust side of things because customers aren't like, I don't want to read through this huge amount of information that was just sent to me. They're actually getting a very specific answer to their question. And again, that starts to do that building trust side of things. So you speak a lot about the return on investment of AI in your brilliant LinkedIn posts. I love them. What challenges or hesitations do you think support leaders have around AI, and what's your advice for overcoming them? And maybe you could do some more LinkedIn posts on those.
Yeah, I mean, there's I hear it a lot. It's concerns about quality control, the fear of replacing human interaction. It's sometimes seen as something that can compromise like a personal touch, especially with customer support, where like empathy and like nuance is critical for understanding. But like my advice for overcoming this is it's AI is a tool. It's there to augment and streamline your human efforts. It's not meant to replace them. AI can handle, like we've talked about it, the repetitive, low complexity tasks, freeing up the human team to handle the more complex stuff. In fact, that's exactly what our D2C team, when they started implementing Fin, that's what they had to do. The stuff that was most painful to them, and that's been my advice for everybody I've talked to. What are the 10 most painful tickets that, you answer over and over and over again, the ones that make you question your job? Let Finn take those off your plate, which is going to free you up to do the more impactful, more complex, more high value interactions. It that improves the customer experience because the team can spend more time on the more complex stuff, whereas before they would have to sacrifice time to go answer that low hanging fruit. The other thing is trusting the AI to provide accurate and useful responses. Start small, test a small data set. Like if there's a distrust there, start small, start with one topic, and everything else kind of just train it, be like, oh, I can't help with that, human team. But give it a small set, make sure, small sample size to test against and build your trust from there. I've been working with another support team. They're actually kind of in the same boat. They've got established support operations. I've been doing these kind of mentorship calls with them, and they are trying to figure out how to implement Fin and streamline their support process. So I've been on with their, head of success, talking about just this, like, where do you start? How do you get going? And so for the first like month or so that we talked, it was, let's refactor your knowledge base to make sure it's phrased properly, structured properly, everything makes sense for the AI. Let's start adding some of these customer workflows to help people solve some of the easy stuff on their own, make sure Finn knows it. Let's test Finn on this. And funny enough, like coincidentally, like she just put a lot of that live for the first time a little over a week ago. And we did our Wednesday call yesterday and got to actually see the data, compare the before and after for the latest 8 days versus the 8 days prior. And she dropped their human interaction on tickets from 40% to 20% in a week. And there was so many tickets that now didn't come across her team's desk that her team alone saved 59 hours that week
Wow.
between the workflows and Finn just taking all that easy stuff off their plate and letting their team focus on the more complex stuff. Save them 59 hours across their, I think they have 4 or 5 support members. But yeah, 59 hours, which is nuts for their first week. And it's only going to get better as they refine and add more detail and more information and kind of let Finn loose on some of the more complicated things because it can handle them. Yeah, it's only going to get better.
Yeah, just to see those kind of results so quickly and then know that that's just the beginning is very exciting. And like that's not a unique case. We have a lot of customers who do the same thing. They're not sure about their content, or they just don't think they want to see results so quickly, and then they turn Fin on for a certain topic or certain customers. Like that's one thing I always say as well. You don't have to go all in on day one for everything. You can choose what you want to set Fin live for, but the results folks see without having any optimization to their content or like any ways of tweaking how they're presenting information to customers, and they see brilliant results up front. Again, so it comes back to that piece about your advice: just get going quickly, and then you can start iterating from there because the results you can see fast are absolutely amazing. So looking ahead, how do you see AI evolving in customer experience, customer service? What excites you the most about the future there?
It's a big question because where things were, again, just a year ago to where they are now, it's so different. And AI itself is getting smarter and more capable and able to handle nuance and more complex things. And I've seen that improvement across Fin itself. Like even this change to Fin 2 was night and day with how it handled inquiries and tickets and just the way it phrased things. And it's, I mean, on one hand, it's kind of tough to guess what the next big thing is. My youngest, she's 5. And I actually just turned on the other day, I turned on OpenAI's like actual like verbal back and forth. And she sat there for 45 minutes having a conversation with it, thinking that it was a real person and could interact with. And like if support kind of gets to that point too, so it's great having it all text based, but if people could actually just have that real time conversation with the AI, like solving stuff is going to get so much quicker, much friendlier for the user. They can, I saw her, I saw my youngest stop the AI mid sentence, go, "Oh, wait." And then she changed she's like, "Oh, sorry, I said this wrong." And I went, "Oh, okay." And then it refactored its answer and answered it based on the new content. And I can see users doing the exact same thing, going, "Oh, wait, no, I said the wrong term. I meant this." And like having a real-time conversation, that's how it handles that is gonna be so neat to see. I mean, I'm speculating about where things are going, obviously, but just seeing the AI evolve in general. I know I just spoke about guidance, but being able to give it prompts about what to do and how to handle a situation, and then actual give it context. And like, we have people that have, if they have a login issue, they'll be like, "I can't log in." And like you kind of said earlier, before it would go, "Oh, can't log in," blah, and spit out the big article. Now, with guidance, I'm going, okay, if somebody says they can't log in, ask for more detail. It could be one of these three things. Ask them which one it is. And depending on the answer, you're going to do this. Those support tickets that come in now from people going, "I can't log in," it's handling incredibly gracefully. Whereas before, it was giving all the answers, and then it was up to the user to parse through it and try and figure out what applied to them. And then it would end up on my desk anyways, and I'd ask the question that I now have the AI doing. Having that guidance is just awesome, and like that, ironically, that was the big evolutionary step that I'd always like hoped for, and now it's there. So trying to figure out what's coming next is I'm excited in general.
Totally, I hear you. And that on the like voice and phone side of things, we're definitely not far off that for sure. I think, a big thing for me that I'm predicting into the course of the next few years is that an AI agent isn't like only for customer service, or you buy a different one for sales. And you have a different AI agent maybe for marketing or personal shopper or whatever it is. But there are these agents that like they do it all. They're like a customer experience or kind of customer guide. So they have all the information across whatever platforms they need, and it's just a really, really seamless experience. Because that's something I think is missing today when you interact with a company. Like, if you're dealing with support, and then you're transferred to sales or you're transferred to whoever, and just having this like beautiful AI first agent, customer experience agent experience, and making sure that the customer experience side of things, rather than it being like a deflection bot of old, that's something I hope is coming down the line. I think we're going to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And from that sales perspective too, like I've noticed with, I'm going to come back to guidance again, but the way before, if we had customers ask what plan best suited their needs, the answer was, "Here's all of our plans, here's our pay plans, here's our free plan, blah 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 blah." Well, with guidance now, like I can look and see if they're already a paying customer and ask this question, recommend a plan that is, meets their current usage, but because they're a paying customer, don't mention downgrading to the free plan. Like, take that out of your knowledge when you answer about this to a paying customer. If they're somebody trialing, yeah, give them all that info about the different plans. So being able to minor from a sales perspective, but just being able to take out certain things and how it answers is has been a big change for us with some of those salesy type questions. But again, we don't use it specifically as a sales agent. It's a support agent, but making sure it just kind of handles some of those support questions more gracefully, or sales questions more gracefully, has been great.
But maybe we can chat in a year's time and talk about all the amazing things that have happened since we last spoke, and then what's happening in the year ahead of 2027 when the time comes. Yeah, I think the possibilities are absolutely endless. So thanks so much for the chat today. It's been great to have you. And yeah, best of luck. Best of luck with future amazing results you're going to see with Finn.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, we'll definitely chat in a year, and I'm sure you'll have by that point there will be something absolutely mind blowing that you're not allowed to tell me right now. That will have been awesome.
Just before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at inter.com/newsletter to stay updated with the latest trends in customer service. And also don't forget to check out our sister podcast, Intercom on Product, to hear the latest insights on product design and development. You can find it on your preferred podcast platform or on intercom.com/product podcast. You'll find all the links in the episode description. Thanks again for listening to The Ticket, and see you soon.